The Cincinnati Reds will not get Anthony Santander. And that makes me think of exactly two questions.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. We are your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds, not the national champion Ohio State Buckeyes if you're watching on the YouTubes. But at any rate, I'm Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr, and we have a combined 14 years of experience of covering these Cincinnati Reds in podcast form. We love the Cincinnati Reds. We love baseball just as much as I love the Ohio State Buckeyes, the 2025 national champions. We're going to gather up all the information about the Reds. We're going to bring it right back here to bring that information to you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on today's podcast, well, Anthony Santander is off the board. So what's next for the Cincinnati Reds outfield? We're going to tell you. We're going to remind you of a stat that you have probably forgotten about and tell you why it could mean the Reds will be a lot better in 2025 than they were in 2024. And down on the farm, Cam Collier and Sal Stewart, well, they're both ranked. And we're going to talk about the Reds stars of the future a little bit later in today's show that's brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets back if your first bet wins. That's right. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. And Jeff, where we are going to get started is with Anthony Santander. I know that's the name I started with right from the very beginning. That was the guy I wanted to bring his 40 home runs into Great American Ballpark and see if he couldn't maybe get that up to 50. And it just never seemed that like that was going to be a match. He wanted too many years. He wanted more money than the Castellinis were willing to give. And I was just clinging to a little bit of hope. As long as he remained on the board, well, he's off to Toronto. He is singing "Oh Canada" right now.
Yeah, he got a 5-year, $90 million contract from Toronto. A little bit of deferrals in there as well. I think he's was it $30 million in deferrals?
Like $33 million could go up to 50 depending on circumstance.
With 5 guaranteed years on that. And there's a couple of different things that I have about that. I've got 2 questions, quite frankly. Is number one, was he ever a fit? And I think that there's a reason that I have a question about that. And the answer actually kind of comforts me a little bit, but I'll get to that in just a minute. The second question that I have is kind of where I want to start. Is not getting Anthony Santander something that the front office didn't want to splurge on, something that the front office didn't think they could stretch and do because they're more than one player away?
I don't think that's the case. I still believe that the Reds are being very, very strategic about long-term deals right now. They're just simply not going to hand them out because I think that the baseball owners around the league that have not, let's be clear, the have not owners around Major League Baseball, I think are biding their time until we get to this next CBA. I don't think any of these smaller market teams are going to risk locking up a player to a big money long-term deal that they can't get out of later where the economics of baseball might be better and in their favor. I think you're going to see 1-2-year deals, maybe a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option, an out clause for the player, stuff like that. You're not going to see 4- and 5-year deals because they don't know what the CBA is going to look like.
And I think that that's an intriguing one to me because also, like, when you consider that, and then you consider the fact that the longest and largest contract that the Reds have ever given a free agent was the one Mike Moustakas for 4 years. And so 5 years would have been longer. And what was it? $68 million total. So it would have been more money total than the Reds have ever guaranteed to a free agent. And I think that they're gun shy a little bit based on their recent history with their free agent deals. Now, the other part of this that I find is the other question that I have is, was this something that Terry Francona said no to? Whenever they were setting up their off-season board, whenever they were looking at the possibilities to improve the roster, did Terry Francona sit down and say, here's the thing, Anthony Santander would improve our lineup. There's no doubt about that. He's our cleanup hitter. If the Reds were to sign him, he's the Reds cleanup hitter day one. I saw some prospective lineups for the Blue Jays. They're thinking he's their cleanup hitter. So that lineup is really good. That's obvious that he'd be the cleanup hitter in Cincinnati. But he would not be an upgrade defensively. In fact, depending on how you look at it, he might be a downgrade defensively. He might not even be an outfielder after the first year. And I think that Terry Francona looked at this and said, look, for the last 30 years, basically, you guys have been punting defense to get a better lineup. And how's that worked out for you? So we ain't doing that no more.
You know, I don't think he could play defense bad enough that it wouldn't be offset by those 50 home runs that he could hit playing in Great American Ballpark. So for me, I don't know that that's the case, Jeff, but your point is well taken. This team has struggled defensively, not just in the outfield. They've struggled defensively pretty much everywhere, including, Ellie De La Cruz at times. So for me, with Terry preaching, we're going to play better baseball, more fundamentally sound baseball, I can see where that argument comes from for you. But I don't think, listen, if Nick Krall had walked into Tito's office and been like, listen, dude, we're ready right now to pull the trigger on Anthony Santander, Terry's not saying no. He's not going to be like, well, no. I need Fairchild out there because he can catch. Francona's not doing that. So I'm telling you, listen, Anthony Santander was talking 5 years from the very beginning. We've heard that from the time that the free agent period started. And I think that more than anything else is what kept the Reds from ever being serious about pitching an offer to Anthony Santander. They simply weren't going to hand out a 5-year contract. That's where it begins and that's where it ends.
Especially for the fact, and I agree with you. I think that weighs a lot more because especially for the fact they're not really offering that to their own players. Like I kind of felt like this is the offseason to do that for Tyler Stevenson. And if you were ever going to sign Ellie De La Cruz, which we told you a million times that that's not going to happen because of his agent. But if you were ever going to do it, that's how you would do it this year. Things like that. And the fact that there's not been any of those types of signings makes me think that, there's absolutely no chance that they go to a free agent and they give them that deal. Because after this season, as of right now, the only 2 players with guaranteed money on the books for the Reds is Hunter Green and Jamer Candelario. And I don't think that they're going to go out and give a big-time deal as much as we wanted. You wanted Santander. I wanted Teoscar Hernandez. They didn't do that. Both those guys off the board. So what's next? I still think we're talking about like a Randall Grichuk, maybe upgrading the platoon a little bit. Maybe they're looking at a Taylor Ward, who is slightly better than an upgrade platoon. Maybe you could play him every day in like left field or something like that. I still think that there's something to that. They cannot run into Goodyear with the current roster and feel as good about it. They've done so much work, Steve, on the pitching staff to eliminate question marks as much as they can, that for them to turn a blind eye to the field and turn a blind eye to the lineup would just be like, well, you're paying attention to half the team here.
Yeah, I agree with you. Reasonable names, Randall Grichuk. Reasonable name, trade for Taylor Ward. Reasonable name, those are okay. And not move them into A for the offseason territory, but would make for a better outfield. I still have hope that they're going to do one of those deals. I said this the other day, and I'll say it again. They have to go get somebody because there's simply not enough outfield depth right now. They have, and if that somebody is a waiver wire claim or somebody that was DFA'd or, somebody off the street, I don't know. I don't know what Nick Krall's thinking because he's not telling us. But they have to go get more bodies. They don't have enough bodies right now for spring training. So if you're going to go out and spend money anyway, go get somebody that's useful to the team and is not just a uniform filler. I think that Grichuk does that. He's somebody that would be useful to the team. A trade for a Taylor Ward type outfielder does that. Somebody that's useful, makes the team better and kind of strengthens. We've talked about how you can squint and what did you say? Squint and turn your head sideways and you can kind of see
turn the lights down low.
The outfield would be okay, a little bit. I would feel better about him if they added Grichuk or Ward. I would feel much better about the outfield group.
Because then at that point you're upgrading the Freychild platoon, right? Like it's
or
Freychuck or
freeing
something.
up
Yeah.
or freeing up Spencer Steer to move around to other places more often, which gets you a better lineup also. So, you know, I'm talking myself into Freychild, man. 115 to 120 in OPS plus, because I never believed David Bell could do it, but I believe that Tito can play a straight platoon and not put guys in bad situations. And I never believed that about David Bell, but I believe Francona can do that. So I can live with Freychild and then free up Spencer Steer to go do some other things.
But kind of like you said, I mean, with Santander coming off the board, it kind of feels like the A for the off season. Unless they come up with something that just isn't on the radar right now, I don't see us giving them that great. But hey, look, the Reds were picked as a dark horse contender for two reasons. Now, you'll know one of them right off the bat, but the other one you might have forgotten about.
Did Rocket Money help you find subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton of money. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every single month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
You are listening to us talking about the Reds here today, as we do every day, every week, every month, all year long. Make sure you subscribe to get at least 30 minutes of Reds talk in your feed every single day. And Steve, as we've kind of talked about already, we're not really feeling like the Reds are headed toward an A off season, but they've already been picked by ESPN. We're talking about Buster Olney and Paul Hembekitis, Hembo for those that know, that the Reds are dark horse contenders this year. And they gave us two reasons. The first reason you're going to know because it's the reason that a lot of people that cover the sport as a whole, not locally, but nationally, are sort of excited to see what happens in Cincinnati. It's because of Terry Francona. The second reason, though, I think people are forgetting about, because right now everybody's mad. You know, no Teoscar, no Anthony Santander, not looking like there's going to be a big time move, not looking like there's going to be a press conference move. We're not going to be seeing a jersey ceremony or anything like that. So immediately people are like, well, this offseason's a waste. This team is horrible. They're not going anywhere. But they forgot about one thing. And it was reminded to everybody by ESPN, the fact that the Reds had a fluky problem last year in one-run ball games. They were 15-28 in those one-run ball games. Steve, that's going to get better.
Oh, it's definitely going to get better. First off, Tito Francona is a better manager than David Bell was. And you can probably pull, of those 28 losses, I bet you and I could go through them and find at least 8 to 10 of them where David Bell was a major factor in what went down. So that's a swing right there, just having Terry Francona in. But I think you look at Tito's reputation for getting more from the players that he's got, for elevating the play of the team that he's managing, and you factor that in as well. I am willing to say that they'll flip that around. They'll have a winning record in one-run games in 2025. That will be the Francona effect.
And now you're probably sitting there thinking, but guys, you're looking at this with Reds colored goggles. There's no way they're going to turn that around. Well, guess what? They did that the year before. In 2023, they were 34-29. Now, they played way too many one-run ball games in 2023, but they had a winning record in one-run ball games, despite their pitching. I mean, we remember the pitching of 2023, right? We remember Luke Weaver starting ball games, right? Like, they had a winning record in one-run ball games the year before. So when you look at all of that, you say, yeah, this is definitely something that can turn around. And then you add in the fact the Reds had that positive run differential, which hang on a second, and it still amounted to an under 500 record. And then you factor in this one-run ball game stuff, you start to mix in a little Terry Francona, like you mentioned, and you can see a team that finishes above 500, at least with a baseline expectation. This is why I keep telling folks during the FanDuel reads that the over-under of 78.5 is ludicrous, and you should be smashing the over on that. That number is going to come up. I'm telling you right now, if you don't hit the over right now, in a month or two, like when we're in spring training, we're getting close to the season, that's going to be up near 80. I believe it. It's going to be 79.5. It's going to be 80.5, things like that. You're never going to get it at a better, value right now, as it were. So I'd be smashing that because this team is going to be better because of Terry Francona on it. And I don't even feel like I'm going out on a limb saying that.
No, it seems pretty straightforward to me. And, I'm trying to be careful to not do that thing with Terry Francona that we do to the young players when they come up, right? To the Hunter Greens and the Nicoladolas.
He's got a track record, Steve. We can do it with him.
This is where I was going with that. We have those expectations that we set that are way too lofty for these new guys when they arrive. But the thing is that Terry Francona has done it in Boston. He's done it in Cleveland, and I am a firm believer that he's going to do it in Cincinnati. I don't think that this is us just hoping beyond hope and pleading and wishing, making it so. I think the track record speaks for itself. I think that we can realistically say that Francona is going to have these effects on these players. And I think we've seen it with players saying they want to be held accountable. We've seen it with players saying that they want to be involved. They want to be part of this team. Jamer Candelario, for crying out loud, is sending hitting videos to Francona. What he's doing right now. Like, these guys want to be playing and they want to play for Tito. So I don't think we're overstating the effect that this managerial hire is going to have on this team in 2025. Now, the people that are naysayers that are poo-pooing this, to some extent, I can see where they're coming from. Francona is not going to get any at bats. He's not going to throw any pitches. But I think he is better equipped and has surrounded himself with better coaches to get more out of these players and have this team compete in a division that is still winnable. While the Cubs did stuff, they didn't do so much stuff that I look at them and go, the Reds can't beat them.
Juggernaut. Right.
Brewers didn't do anything that make me think that someday they aren't going to come crashing back to earth. It has to happen. I think this is the year it happens. So that's a 3-team race right there. The Cardinals are in implosion mode right now. I don't know what they're doing in St. Louis.
They might be the last place team in this division.
Correct. And then the Pirates are always going to pirate. That's just the way that's going to be. So the Reds are preseason on paper before we've thrown a pitch. For me, this is a 3-horse race in the National League Central, and the Reds are one of those horses.
And I think that you can objectively look at Milwaukee and say, well, at least on paper, they got worse. Are they going to continue the devil magic thing? That's going to be the interesting conversation of, is there going to be some random guy just hit 300 for the entire year or something? I don't know the answer to that right now, but at least on paper, it looks like they got worse. And I don't think the Reds got worse on paper. I think they got slightly better, not better enough that we're like super excited about it, but slightly better. And Terry Francona makes them better. I think we got the best manager in the division. I know that there was all that stuff made about Craig Counsell jumping ship from Milwaukee to Chicago. I'd rather have Terry Francona than Craig Counsell. And I think I'm going to be saying that at the end of the season as much as I'm saying it here on January 21st. And that is what everybody's looking at. And I still keep going back to this quote that I saw a clip of Tim Kirkjian giving an interview to somebody, and there's few people in this world that know baseball like Tim Kirkjian will ever know baseball. And he said there's never been a better manager at relating to players than Terry Francona. And I think that there's just an intangible that he brings, and there's different intangibles that he is bringing in with his assistant coaches that the Reds just haven't had in the David Bell era. So we are going to see a different ball club. As much as we're seeing a lot of the same names and we're a little bit worried about that, I'm worried about that. I'm not saying that, I'm in love with the roster, but I think that Terry Francona is going to work something here, and we're going to see a better ball club than what we are currently envisioning just looking at the roster and looking at Baseball Reference.
Yeah, and I know last year we got mad, right? You and we both got mad when everybody started putting out their predictions and when the
so what we're saying is we're going to get mad again. Just get ready.
We're going to get mad again because I think people are going to doubt a little bit. But it does encourage me like that we're hearing this from ESPN, that we're hearing from the national talking heads, that they believe in the Francona effect also. Time's going to tell, but Jeff, I am telling you that there are still, I keep saying this, there are still a lot of reasons to be excited, even though they haven't got that right-handed power hitting outfielder that I have been beating the drum for. But listen, there's some other things to be excited about, Jeffrey, because there is some talent. It's far away, but there is some talent in the Reds minor league, and some guys are ranked, and we're going to talk about those guys coming up next.
From first kick to final whistle, FanDuel is the way to make the playoffs even better for you, because right now FanDuel has an offer. If you win your first $5 bet, you will get $300 in bonus bets. Just go to FanDuel.com to take advantage of that today. Seriously, there's so much to get into when it comes to the NFL playoffs, like individual player prop bets. I absolutely love going all crazy on those. I mean, you got Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes coming up. You know that those guys are going to be throwing the ball all over the field. And I don't think there's a prop bet on penalties for Patrick Mahomes, but take the over if there is. Because you know me, I love to take the over. Plus, take the over on the Reds win total right now. FanDuel has the Reds total over-under wins at 78.5. I mean, come on. They're definitely winning more than that. Take the over right now and tell them Jeff sent you. They're not going to care, but you should take the over. That's at FanDuel.com. And again, your first $5 bet that wins can net you $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make every moment more. They are an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Tell them Jeff sent you. They're not going to care. I love it. Listen, if you can't catch us here on YouTube, take us on the road with you. We are available on pretty much every audio podcasting platform out there. Take us in the car, take us to the gym, take us on a walk down by the river. We will talk baseball with you here, there, or anywhere. All right, Jeff. Oh, boy.
Down by the river?
Oh, stop. You totally threw off my whole, you let me lose my whole train of thought now. All right, listen, Jeff, some of the youngsters got rated, and, we want to celebrate, young, amazing athletic talent like the 2025 national champion Ohio State Buckeyes, who won the college football playoff last night. We want to celebrate dudes like that. And the Reds have some dudes like that down in their farm system, some very gifted athletes. One of them is named Cam Collier. Another one is named Sal Stewart. And those are just a few of the names that are drawing some national attention, and they are ranked within the Red system.
They're both guys that we talked about a lot this offseason as being potential trade chips, but both have been rated in the top 10 of their positions. Cam Collier ranked as the 5th best third baseman in all of minor league baseball. And you have Sal Stewart ranked as the 7th best second baseman in all of prospect. I say minor league baseball. I mean like the 7th best prospect at second base. Cam Collier is the 5th best third base prospect in all the land. So when you look at these things, it makes me wonder a little bit, does it change your thinking on them? Because we're sitting here thinking like, okay, maybe a Luis Robert, maybe a Taylor Ward. Taylor Ward's not going to, I don't think, require either one of these guys, but in a big trade, how available are these guys?
There is nobody that is not on the major league roster right now that I would not consider trading. I do not care. For
it's
me,
a lot of negatives. There's so many negatives.
You go out and you get the best major league talent you can get to win in the window that you have right now. And look, Will Cam Collier be great? Maybe. Can you guarantee me that Cam Collier is going to be great? No, you cannot. How many wins above replacement is Cam Collier going to bring you in 2025? I'll tell you that number right now with certainty. It's 0. He's not going to play in the major league. So if you can trade him for, I don't know, a right-handed power hitting outfield bat, and that is not Luis Robert, if you can put him in a deal and be smart and spend your prospect capital and make this major league team better, you do it. And I would have no qualms about it.
I do find it a little bit interesting, and this is from MLB Pipeline that are ranking Cam Collier and South Stewart. They're going through the different positions and looking at players and rating the top 10 prospects at each position. They have not got to pitcher yet. I'd be curious to see where Chase Burns and Chase Petty land on that list. And I think Rhett Lauder is also considered still a prospect. So the Reds might even have 3 top 10 guys on that list. That'd be kind of intriguing to see. But with all that being said, this kind of feels like the top of the Reds list. Like Alfredo Duno is up there on the Reds list, not necessarily up there because he's so far away on the
He's
MLB
like 12 years
pipeline.
old, right? Like, isn't he in like
Almost.
doesn't he like still have a bedtime when they're like on road games?
But even Collier and South Stewart, MLB Pipeline put their ETA at 2026, and I would even think that that's a little bit soon. Like I would say if it's 2026, it's like late 2026. And if those guys are getting up here in 2026, there's some other questions that need to be asked at that point, and I hope we're not asking them at that point. So there's lots to kind of glean there and lots to really unpack. We're actually going to have Doug Gray from Reds Minor Leagues and Red Leg Nation on the show coming up tomorrow. He's going to kind of help us unpack that a little bit. We're also going to talk about the international prospects that the Reds added to their ranks. There was a nice list of them. Nobody really crazy high on that.
What's that guy's name from the Dodgers?
Well, that was a trade. That wasn't even part of the international signings. The international signings.
But they gave up.
There's even even more. The names are even more fun to say. But yeah,
they gave up international bonus pool money to get him.
I guess
that was the trade.
Make a point, but yes, Arnaldo Lantigua. I got it there on the first try. Yeah. I'm not going to try again. But yes, Lantigua coming in from the Dodgers. Again, he's a Dominican Summer League guy, but those guys, there's lots to unpack with that. And I know that Doug knows a lot more about them, but I'd be kind of curious as to his thoughts as well, because I think you and I both attack this from a major league perspective where we're just like, yes, make the major league roster better right now. And I've seen lots of other takes that are just like, no, you can't trade guys like this. So it's always intriguing to look at, especially when you're talking about these two guys who neither one of them have played an inning above AA.
I think, we haven't gone down this road in a while, but guys that are anti-trade the prospects because, you can't trade them away. They're going to be, I always circle back to Nick Senzel because I was adamant that you don't trade Nick Senzel. And what did that get the Reds? Now, do they bear some responsibility in how that all played out? They did some things that I think hurt Nick Senzel long-term, but at the end of the day, he was, everybody agreed that he was the next coming of, a key piece of a big red machine. And, he could barely be a role player at times. So, that's the cautionary tale. That's what you look at when you're talking about, well, you can't possibly trade Edwin Arroyo. He's the best fielding shortstop in the system. Well, Nick Senzel had a pretty good glove too.
And a pretty good bat, at least according to scouts. So I do find it a little bit interesting, and we'll know more about these guys as they move through the system. Like I mentioned, and I said above AA, what I meant was they've only played as high as Dayton. They haven't gotten to Chattanooga yet. So we're going to learn more about them this year. I think both guys start in Chattanooga and kind of go from there. I don't know that they move quickly from Chattanooga to Louisville. It's possible they spend most of the year, if not all of the year, in Chattanooga. It's just that most of the Reds' top prospects are not really that highly ranked outside of pitcher. And once you get Chase Petty and Chase Burns and Rhett Lauder up to the major leagues, then you've not got a lot of other guys behind them. So it's going to be intriguing to see how the Reds decide to move with their prospects moving forward, because as much as they have said we want to be a draft and develop from within team, they are not super loaded for another round for a couple more years. It's going to be a couple more years before we really see what we saw in 2023.
Yeah, this in between level right now, they've got to restock the minors just a little bit, because then what will happen is all the guys on the major league roster now that aren't going to be extended, they start trading those guys off and restock behind. So there's a gap. They got to fill that gap in the middle, and then that next group comes, and then you get into the roster churn a la Tampa and the way some of the other guys do it to build the roster. So they are going to have to make some moves that are intermediate, temporary, gap filler kind of moves in order to get to where they can now fully implement this system that Nick Krall has been adamant about that the Reds are going to run, which is can't extend them, we're going to trade them.
And we are a couple of years away from that, so don't go too crazy thinking like, oh, you guys are saying that the window's shutting on us and it's just opening. Not quite. There's still a few more years before you got to worry about all that. But kind of wanted to end on that, a positive note about Collier and Stewart getting their flowers. We'll see how they continue to grow here in 2025. And like I mentioned, Doug Gray will be on the show tomorrow, and we'll really dive into some prospect stuff. How close are Chase Burns and Chase Petty? The chases. Chase and Chase, double chase, Chase times 2.
Sounds like
Chase
a private
squared.
detective.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a law firm name here. Yeah, something like that. But we'll talk more about that with Doug Gray.
Chase and Louder is definitely a law firm.
Chase and Louder. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a accident law firm that you see. Who has the bad haircut? Anyway, never mind. Let's go ahead and end today's podcast. Appreciate everybody so much for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss anything we've got to say all throughout the offseason. We're going to lead you up to spring training, and coming up here in February, we will expand back to 5 days a week as we get you ready for Goodyear and the Reds 2025 season that's going to be heading for the postseason. But until then, you can trust that any news, any rumors, anything is going to be right here on Locked On Reds, because we are Locked On Reds every single day.
OHIO.
Got that lifetime contract for Ryan Day. I don't think that's a song. I just made that up. Does that fit into the fight song?
Oh my God. I can't stand you.